All right, welcome to episode 4 of the Due North Sports Podcast. I'm Austin Schumacher here with Alex Shanilek.
What up?
Just getting off 4th of July weekend. How'd everything go, Alex?
Good. Spent some time at lake with the in-laws. Just a short trip, but we had a nice time. Good to be back. Lots of NBA news happening. We're a little delayed in responding to some big Timberwolves events the last month, but we'll dig into it here.
Yeah, so getting into that, the Timberwolves, of course, trade for LaMelo Ball along with Josh Green for Naz Reid, 2033 unprotected first, 3 pick swaps, and 3 second rounders. And the Timberwolves now don't control their first round pick for the next 7 years.
Chase, will you pull that up?
Going all in.
Yeah. And, we can get into a lot of angles on this trade. It hurts to lose Naz Reid, first and foremost. And those swaps, some of those are they're like derivatives of prior swaps. Those aren't going to be a huge deal. It's really that I look at that 2033 first as the big outgoing piece other than Naz.
Yeah, it's a lot of fluff other than that.
Right. But yeah, we can't trade any other firsts now till after that one. So it won't be till next season that we could, like, the 2034 one would open up. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
And it kind of felt like we kind of had one last bolt in the chamber for a big move. And Tim Connolly decides to go after LaMelo Ball, still in his mid-20s. Obviously can be very electric, but there's some maturity issues. There's some durability issues. So with one bullet left in the chamber to make one big move, where do you think this thing goes, Alex?
Well, I think you have to look at where they were sitting at the end of last season and how last season ended. I think we discussed it on this show, and if you spend any time on Twitter or on Timberwolves Reddit or anywhere amongst Timberwolves fans and media for that matter, I think everybody agreed that something needed to be done and that Julius Randle wasn't going to fit anymore. And we can talk about the Julius Randle piece of this, but they essentially salary dumped him, which allowed them to give Ayo Dosunmu the contract they gave him, but also opened up enough space to make this LaMelo Ball trade. But knowing that, I think a lot of people thought Randle being kind of a depressed asset and a positional fit mismatch with our roster, everybody has kind of talked about we need a point guard. So I think a lot of people thought we were going to try to trade Randle with other pieces, maybe the 2033 first for probably another depressed asset, but who was a point guard. So Ja Morant, Kyrie Irving, some of those guys we talked about on the last episode of this show. When the Julius Randle trade happens and we traded him for, we traded him and our first round pick, which was like the 27th pick, I think, for the 32nd pick or the 33rd pick or so. We moved down like 5 spots.
Essentially as a salary dump.
Yes.
Yeah.
But once that happened, then, you think, well, what's the next move? Because they have some space and they signed Ayo, but I think people still thought Giannis was maybe in play. There was some Jaylen Brown chatter. Obviously, both those guys got moved elsewhere subsequently. So LaMelo Ball wasn't on my radar at all as a trade target. the day that trade happened, I think I was shocked, partially because I didn't see it coming. He wasn't somebody I had thought they were looking at, and losing Naz Reid was sort of a shock. I think once Randall was dumped, the natural thought was, and media tweeted it. John Krasinski tweeted this. Nas is finally going to get a chance to start at the 4, and we're going to get a chance to see what he can do as a starter. I mean, he still played decent minutes, even not as a starter, but you know, he probably was going to play north of 30 minutes now, and so it's a little bit sad. He kind of became a cult hero figure, and it feels like him and Jaden and Ant were this core that we were going to ride or die with. And so it took me a little while to process the Nas Reed piece. And the immediate reaction, I'm not out here grinding Charlotte Hornets tape. So you see highlights and things, but when you think of LaMelo Ball, you think of his dad, you think of the reality show they had, you think of kind of a circus, you think of some immaturity, um, off the court stuff with reckless driving. Um, he's a character, I guess would be one way to put it. But as I processed and kind of went through the stages of grief, as it were, with the Nas Reed piece, um, and kind of dug in a little bit to how well Charlotte did last season on offense, especially down the stretch, and I started to come around. Um, what was your immediate reaction to the trade?
I think it was kind of exciting, but with everything with this Tim Connolly regime, it almost feels like they've tried to push up the competitive window when they traded for Rudy Gobert, a few years ago, and still very young. Of course, it's gotten him some very good playoff experience. They made 2 Western Conference Finals, but of course they gave up a haul for that. But it also was like, we lost Dante in that series to injury. Ant was very clearly hobbled. Was this just kind of an overreaction that we had to do something? I do agree. Julius Randle was just not a good fit, and he needed to go. But they're kind of putting all their chips into this, and if this doesn't work out, it's gonna end very badly. And if this doesn't work out, is Ant on the team in 3 years? But of course, the other side of this could also be, well, if you don't do anything, does Ant start to feel a little upset that we're not making any big moves, and he feels like his prime is kind of being wasted?
Yeah.
I think that the negatives are, of course, he's got durability issues. Bill Simmons said he's the least durable good guard of the last 25 years. He finally was healthy last season, and Charlotte decides to move off of him from having a good season, especially in the second half. He had an injury early on, but he only averaged 27 minutes a game. So it's a little concerning about, once you get into playoff basketball, he's going to have to play a lot more minutes. He's going to have to be a lot more involved, and he's going to have to stay durable for this team to have a chance to go anywhere. And then the other side of it is, you're completely changing the look of this team. We used to overwhelm teams with our size, our physicality, with our obviously going back, we had Cat, Rudy, and then Nas and Randall, and it was a huge advantage for us against specifically the Denver Nuggets, who Tim Connolly kind of built this team to compete with, because they were the target. They were the defending champions. He had helped build that roster. He knew how to beat them. But of course, now the target has changed. And of course, now we're looking at Oklahoma City, and we're looking at the San Antonio Spurs, who are both younger. They're a lot deeper. They've got more talented rosters. And we're trying to adapt to that. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it just you're completely changing the identity of the team, and it's just going to be interesting where it goes from here.
I think so. You brought up the Ant piece. I think there's angst amongst the fan base about Ant's happiness and Ant's future. The drum beats going in the national media already, and we're going to have to get used to that. But I think a couple things that's important to keep in mind. One of which is that he's under contract until the 28-29 season, through the 28-29 season. So we've got 26, we've got 3 more seasons. He's likely going to sign an extension here. Now that doesn't mean he couldn't ask for a trade, but we're not in a situation yet where he's going to leave. But you had this situation where people looked at how last season ended, how the playoffs went, and kind of went, "Hey, we got to do something. We got to go get Giannis. Ant's going to leave. Blah 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 blah." And then we do this trade for Lamelo, which isn't what people expected, and they're like, "We made the wrong move, and now Ant's going to leave because of that." And I have to think that um, he was at least consulted somewhat in this decision making process. But beyond all that, as a
Yeah, you'd
fan,
hope so for
I
sure.
I just we as Minnesota sports fans, um, we've spent and specifically with the Timberwolves, because the Vikings, the Vikings have had stretches of success uh our whole lives. We never won the big one. But the Timberwolves were awful for almost their entire existence. And I think we need to remember, I get a little bit annoyed at how much rings culture has permeated this, and it almost becomes like you can't enjoy a season if it doesn't end in a championship. Only one team gets to win it. That doesn't mean that there's not moments that bring us joy that we're going to remember. I'll remember forever being at that game 4 with my brother when Ant got hurt and DiVincenzo got hurt. We came back and won, and Io scored 43, and Jokic tried to fight Jaden McDaniels. Just like I'll remember forever the Minneapolis Miracle. Um, and I'll remember forever the Brett Favre year. And I think where I'm going with it is the team is trying to do things to uh, improve, but let's enjoy the ride a little bit too. We can worry about Ant leaving in a couple years. Um, I'm not, and he likely won't finish his career here, but I'm not to the point yet where I'm going to spend my summer being anxious about what Ant is going to do in 3 or 4 years. Like, let's let's have some fun. Let's watch some basketball. And honestly, you brought up a lot of the downsides, and those are all valid. Especially, I think the injury stuff. Uh, they clearly had him on some sort of a minutes restriction, but when you look at even despite that, they finished the year with the 5th best offensive rating in the league. So that's points scored per 100 possessions. They were 0.18 points below the San Antonio Spurs and 0.27 points per 100 possessions behind the New York Knicks, the 2 teams that were in the championship. That's with him playing limited minutes. Their on-off splits, I think I saw, they were like 9 points worse on offense with him off the floor. Um, the things he can do, the things he opens up, um, when you talk about in the playoffs, obviously he has to be there and he has to be durable. But what's probably the biggest concern with Ant is the double teams and who's there to get off the double team, not just to shoot like Dante could do that, but another creator, another ball handler, another guy who can run the offense. Ant did an admirable job these past couple of years of being sort of a point guard, but it's not his best role. His best role is to be a scorer, and I think this move helps unlock him to be the best scorer he can be. He shot like 59% on catch and shoot threes last year, which is just crazy. On relatively low volume, he only took like 140 of them or something. I have to imagine there's going to be a lot more of those. Go watch some Hornets highlights from last year and watch it like what what LaMelo did for Con Knipple and what, he's a rookie and he's just getting these open looks all the time. Almost everyone on the team, their 3-point shooting percentage went down when LaMelo was off the floor. He's
There's
he's
no
a
question about that.
generational talent, and I think people are, because of the off the court stuff, because of the family name, and because of the injury, which are all valid concerns, especially the injury. uh, I think people are discounting how good of a talent he is. And nobody else that we could have got for that price, if you're talking about the Ja Morant level of player, because let's remember, Ja Morant, he's several years removed from having a good season. LaMelo Ball played the best basketball of his career the end of this year. He's 26 years old, or he will be 26 years old this season. He's the same age as Ant. And so I'm being a little bit glass half full with this because uh I, I'm excited about the possibility of what this offense can look like. Um, and so maybe I'm undercounting the negatives, but I think too many people are treating LaMelo Ball like he's some scrub, and I think like an all NBA level talent. And the question is just, is he going to take it seriously, and is he going to be able to stay on the court?
Yeah, and I agree, but none of that matters. Like you said, if he can't stay on the court, and he's just got a terrible track record, and he's too young, and he doesn't have any playoff experience besides some playing games for us to really go off of on. But I mean, going back to Tim Connolly, like, I appreciate that he's aggressive and he's always trying to make the team better, but it just never feels like he really steals anybody. Everything just feels like an overpay. I mean, Rudy Gobert was a gross overpay. Of course, you can argue now that maybe it was worth it because they went to two Western Conference Finals in 3 years, and they went to the second round last year. But if you don't have an NBA ring, you could still say that it was kind of a failure for what they've overpaid for. And I just think they've this competitive window. We never really got a chance to see what happened with Karl Anthony Towns
Mm-hmm.
and Anthony Edwards together. They pushed up this timeline. They got Rudy Gobert, who of course was already 31 when they traded for him, and Ant and Cat was in his mid-20s, and Ant was still 21, 22 years old. And then they had to move off of Cat because of the money issues, because of the Rudy trade. So a lot of these moves just feel like they're kind of doubling down and trying to fix bad moves that they've made previously. I mean, you look at what they gave up for Rob Dillingham. Of course, eventually that turned out into AO, which was good, but a lot of these moves just feel like gross overpay, and I'm just afraid that this one is going to feel the same way when we look back at it in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember the context that these moves are happening in now too, though. Like, the when they did the Gobert trade, the new CBA with these aprons hadn't been it was not in place yet. And I think everybody in the league got blindsided by that. And now, some of these moves you're seeing, the Jaylen Brown trade, the Knicks got rid of Mitchell Robertson after winning a ring to sign somebody cheaper because they're kind of treating the second apron like it's a hard cap, even though it's technically not. You can spend over that. There's just crippling roster construction penalties. You're limited on the types of moves you can do. And the luxury tax means that every dollar you spend uh, costs exponentially more than that dollar in real money that you have to pay into the luxury tax. And so I think we as fans are not fully immersed in the new reality yet because it's still a relatively new thing. But I think you're gonna see this a lot more, these sort of what look like panic moves, because really that's what the Cat trade was. They looked at the salary and thought, "We're gonna handicap ourselves if we have to do this." And so the idea was to try to create some flexibility and maybe Randall works out. Well, he didn't work out. And then flexibility is cold comfort when you're watching Carl Anthony Towns hoist a Larry O'Brien trophy. But um, so the other thing uh, with Connolly is you brought it up, but you have to respect that he's not sitting twiddling his thumbs either. And I did want to point out, you mentioned we brought the window up by getting older with Rudy, with Mike Conley, etc. But now this LaMelo move, especially relative to if you were going to go after somebody like Kyrie Irving instead, who's in his mid 30s. Now the roster is you've got Edwards is 25, Ball is 25, Ayo Dosunmu's 27, Jalen Clark is 25, Jaden McDaniels is 26, Baron J is 20, Bones Highland is 26, Terrence Shannon is 26, and then of course you got Rudy's 34, DiVincenzo's 30 and injured. Josh Green, who we'll see if they keep him or not, he's also 26. All of a sudden, they got younger. And I think that's another piece to think about in how to value this. If it doesn't work, just like if any of these moves don't work, it increases the likelihood that Ant leaves or that they have to make another panic move. But if it does work, you could be looking at this is your backcourt for even another 5-year run or something. And whereas if you got 34 or 35-year-old, whatever he is, Kyrie Irving, what are you really realistically going to get out of him? He's coming off an injury, and does he have 4 more like elite years left? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's one of the things I liked about it is his age. Obviously, he was in the same draft class as Anthony Edwards. He famously scared the Timberwolves away by telling them that after basketball, he wanted to become the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Would you vote for him, Alex?
No comment.
But I do like that he matches the Anthony Edwards timeline. Like I said, like the Rudy Gobert trade obviously did a lot for them. It raised their floor, immediately made them top 10 defense in the NBA. But at the end of the day, as Ant is getting into his prime, he's going to be starting to decline. And, we needed a Rudy Gobert that's matching Anthony Edwards' timeline. If you're looking at roster construction, everything needs to be centered around Anthony Edwards. And yeah, it's great that he's got this playoff experience. And Rudy Gobert was a big part of that. But I just never felt like the timeline matched up. But it certainly does with LaMelo Ball.
Here's my rebuttal to that. Yes, it does with LaMelo. I also think part of what they're trying to do here is thread a needle so that by the time Rudy is fully declining, Baron J is maybe 22 and ready to start. I think one of the things I'm excited to see is Baron J to get, 15, 20 minutes a game. And I think
it sounds like he's going to get that this year, right?
And he's still very raw. Yeah. If he doesn't, I'm going to have a lot of questions and concerns because they need him to hit. But he's shown flashes, not just the defense, but his athleticism on offense. Like, I can picture LaMelo throwing him lobs like crazy because he can actually catch the ball. And
hey, Alex, for some of our audience that isn't super familiar with Baron J, can you kind of go in a little bit on his background and
so he's a French kid. He was our first round draft pick
2025, right?
Last year. Yeah, he was a rookie last year. So he was 19. Everybody was very excited about him. He played well at Summer League. He didn't get a lot of run in the regular season. I think he was 19. He's 20. He's still going to be raw. But there's a little bit of a synergy. He's also French. I think there's, from the outside looking in, you like to hope that there's some mentoring going on between him and Rudy Gobert, because if they could thread that needle and have, I think he's got uh, a lot of defensive upside that could replace what you're missing with Rudy. And I'm not going to say he's going to be, uh, a 4-time defensive player of the year winner, but I just mean he has the potential to be a very good defensive center. But the more exciting part to me is what he might be able to bring on the offensive end. Like he can handle the ball a little bit for a big man. He can catch the ball. He can jump.
Unlike
Uh,
who?
Unlike his mentor Rudy Gobert. Uh,
I
and,
was going
and
to
so
say, hopefully he's just working on him on the offensive or the defensive side of the ball, not
yeah, right.
offense.
And I think so. There was some thought that maybe Gobert would be moved because of the reasons you're saying. He's getting up there in age, but I think they're looking at this like LaMelo, if he can stay healthy, unlocks the offense. Gobert and McDaniels provide a defensive floor, and Baron J's not ready yet. If Baron J was ready, I think maybe they look at moving Rudy and moving Rudy's contract, which isn't terrible, but it's still like 30, 28. What is he making? Sorry. He is at 36 and a half. But I mean the way these salaries are, I mean Ant's making 50. So um
Sure. But all good points.
and,
And
and
sounds like for center, we've got it figured out. But who the hell's playing power forward, Alex? We
so
traded Naz Reid. We salary dumped Julius Randle. Who's playing power forward? Is it going to be McDaniels? Do we have another move coming? I'm a little worried that let me just say this: the happiest team in the league has got to be the Denver Nuggets
yes.
because we completely overwhelmed them. We just had their number the last 3 seasons, and we just completely changed our roster construction, the identity of our team, and they just got to be thrilled because I think they match up pretty well with Oklahoma City, especially, and they could just never get through us.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Well,
What do you think about the power forward position?
it's definitely a concern. They just signed Trey Lyles as a depth piece, and I kind of look at that as a warm body. I mean, he's a guy. Last year, he played for Real Madrid in Spain. Prior to that, he had spent a bunch of time with the Kings, but his last NBA season was 2 seasons ago. But
Not great.
he's really the only power forward on the roster because Jaden's 6'10", but he's played the 3 for most of his career,
Correct.
other than situationally. Um, I think right now, to start the season, you're going to see a lineup probably of Ball, Edwards, Dosunmu, McDaniels, and Gobert. Then Baron J will be the backup 5. I think like they're gonna play small a lot, absent another move. They're gonna play small a lot, so I would expect to see like TJ Shannon probably slots in at the 4 some. But all of that means I think twin turbos last year with Bones, who, speaking of Bones, we did bring him back as well. Bones Highland and Io DeSunmu. Uh, Getting rid of Randall and replacing him with LaMelo Ball is going to make Ant have to run, and this entire team is going to get out and run because you're going to have LaMelo leading the break. You're going to have Io out there. You're going to have Bones in the mix. You're going to have TJ Shannon, all these guys that are just going to get out and run, and we're going to be a crazy transition team. But in certain matchups, particularly Denver and other teams with big men like that, uh, it is going to present some concerns. But one other thing to think about is it's almost like a zag in that, maybe the way to beat San Antonio for us is one way to beat Wemby is to be able to shoot over the top. And LaMelo is a good 3-point shooter, both off the dribble and in catch and shoot situations. And so uh, you can't double Ant anymore the way you have, because he's going to get it to LaMelo, and LaMelo is either going to shoot or open up an open shot for somebody else. And I think they need to do something. I just don't think they need to necessarily do something right now. And I think they're comfortable going into the season as is and seeing how it goes. And maybe the next move happens in February before the trade deadline.
With what assets?
Well, it would likely be a big piece of this is Chase. Bring that. Well, I don't. You don't need to bring it up right now. The Josh Green, the other player that came back in that
Yeah.
trade, his salary is 14.7 million, or just under that, 14.6 million.
But
That
from my understanding, Charlotte was like, "You're taking Josh Green if you want LaMelo. We want all those picks. We want Naz Reid, and you're taking Josh Green in his
yeah,
contract.
and that so
So
he's
why
a
would that have value if
well, it would
for
have
them it had negative value?
it would have value in that uh it will be an expiring contract. So like this is the final year of his contract.
Sure,
So
sure,
you may be able to dump him on a team looking to open up some space. Like for a guy who's making that same amount of money, but that's on a 2 or 3 year deal,
sure.
a team looking to get off that. Um, I'm not saying that's a magic solution, but there's also maybe at that point you decide you are okay trading Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah,
They've held strong on not trading him, but maybe things with the guard group are going well enough that you go, we're comfortable with that. There's something to put together. But my point is, I think everybody thinks everything needs to happen right now, and I don't know that it does. And maybe the best thing isn't sitting out there right now to do. Um, I also Josh Green, I've looked into him a little bit. He can play. There's just going to be a lot of lineups where everybody is like, it's a center and the next tallest guy is like 6'6", and
sure.
we'll see how that goes. Because they don't have essentially all they have left now is the minimum,
Yep.
and you know,
How patient do you think we're gonna have to be with this to work? Because like I think about the Rudy trade. The first year, it was a little awkward with him and Cat. They were trying to figure everything's out. Like it wasn't very successful in that first season.
um,
We kind of had to wait for the second season for that to kind of start to bear fruit. After that
and
trade,
really, I mean, but we also before at the trade deadline that year, we traded D'Angelo Russell for Mike Conley and Nikhil Alexander Walker, and Mike
yeah.
Conley was a big part of unlocking Rudy Gobert because D'Lo didn't, D'Lo was
Finally, a trade. Tim Connolly didn't get taken to the
yeah,
cleaners,
right,
but keep going.
right. Uh, so um, I think there will be less growing pains than there were with both the Rudy trade and the Randall trade, just because both of those guys are very unique players that you kind of have to learn how to play with. And I think LaMelo is more of a connector and a guy who's going to unlock a lot of things. It'll take time for him to, learn how to throw Rudy the ball, for instance, but I would hope some of that stuff can happen during training camp. I'm a little bit more concerned for the immediate start of the season on how Ant and LaMelo fit together. Not in a can the offense work. I think personalities aside, it's a very good fit. But the personalities matter. And is LaMelo going to are they going to be able to thread this needle of you're the point guard now, but Ant is still the alpha dog. So when there's 3 minutes left in the game, if you shoot a three with 21 seconds left on the shot clock, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
I think, like if you remember when LeBron first went to the Heat, or even when Kyrie Irving first got traded to the Mavericks, like LeBron and Wade and Kyrie and Luca, you're kind of these ball dominant guys. How is it all going to fit? It takes a little bit of time, but I wouldn't be surprised if pending health, um, if we have a strong start to the season. Like,
sure.
I think within that first month, a lot of this stuff will get worked out if it works. And kind of just circling back, I think my biggest takeaway for myself and the advice I want to give to my fellow Timberwolves fans is uh this is like this sort of the opposite of the Denny Green, well, crown him then, is there's so much doom and gloom, like we're screwed, this isn't going to work. And I'm like, well, we might, why even play the season? Let's just pack it up. I'm excited now because we're going to see on the offensive side of the ball, we're going to see some fireworks and we're going to see some excitement that we haven't seen. And I'm excited to see it. And it might blow up in our face. So we might lose a finger, but it's going to be damn exciting while we watch it. And if we were to run this back, that's what I would ask anybody with Julius Randle. What would we be doing then?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And I mean, I think we should spend a little bit more time talking about our boy Naz Reid. I mean, he just became he was an icon. There we go. Naz Reid. He was an icon for the state of Minnesota. I mean, he was just such a vibe and culture fit. And I mean, he didn't even really have so much of an outward personality, but like the fan base just embraced him so much, the entire state. I mean,
And
it was like every other's talking to so many of my friends that are fans of other teams, like they all love Naz Reid. Like
yep,
they all talk about how much they love Naz Reid. And like he was just such a cool fit on this team. So it's kind of a bummer to see him go.
absolutely. Well, and it's interesting to just think about, he came in as sort of this chubby, undrafted out of LSU, kind of this chubby 6'9" guy, like not quite a center, could handle the ball, but he transformed his body and he's sort of a unicorn in the league in terms of this guy with size, but he can move and handle the ball and shoot like a guard.
Dude,
And
and one of the quickest
yes,
3-point releases you'll
yes.
ever see. I mean, so fast on the draw.
And
Like,
sometimes going to the hole, like taking guys off the dribble, you're like,
yeah,
you blink and you miss it. Um,
yeah, correct.
and it all sort of started like Jaden McDaniels would be in the locker room and just say like Nas Reed, and then the fans took that up and that became like a greeting. You just say Nas Reed, and then everybody uh it just took off. And then they had like those Nas Reed towels they gave out, and then you're seeing at like I saw somebody at a World Cup game, there was a Nas Reed towel. You'd see it at WrestleMania. You just like all over the place. People were getting Nas Reed tattoos. There was that
Wow.
sign at Parkway Pizza in Minneapolis that says honk if you love Nas Reed. And he just kind of almost became like a this mythical character. And he was still this down to earth guy that we got to watch play. And it does hurt because he embraced Minnesota. And it was just a great fit. One I loved Kyle Teige brought up something on Dane Moore's show that you know, Nas Reed's not the type of guy based on production that would get his jersey retired, but something that would be cool is if they threw up one of the Nas Reed towels in the rafters, just as
Yeah,
kind of a nod
totally.
to he meant something to this team and the city and the state and the fans that go beyond scoring points. And so that hurt. I mean, honestly, I brought it up before, but I was kind of in shock um and legitimately had to go through like the stages of grief to
Yeah,
like
totally.
denial and anger and sadness and ultimately acceptance. And I'm excited. I wouldn't be shocked if he has a monster year, and I'll be cheering for him. I mean, I hold no ill will in my heart at all. Same with Cat. I mean, these guys didn't ask to be traded,
Yeah.
so um, that's tough, and
Are
it's
you
going to take a while to get over.
are you a little surprised that of course they move off of Nas, they bring in Julius Randle, then they dump like are you a little surprised that Nas never ended up being like the anointed starting power forward on this team? Like Do you think it was defensive issues that they didn't really see that for him, or is he just kind of a casualty of, oh, we saw the opportunity to get LaMelo Ball, so yeah, we were kind of planning on having you as our starter at the 4 moving forward, but we had the opportunity to go get a superstar caliber player like LaMelo Ball, because like, of course, he was the sixth man of the year a few years ago. Like
Yeah.
you would just think the natural progression, the talent is there, that he should be a core part of your lineup moving forward. And now he's gone.
Yeah, I have to imagine, um, it was always in the plan to have him. I mean, part of the rationale, or what they told us about the cat trade was that, well, they have to do it so that they can keep Naz Reid, and it was like Naz Reid is the one of the bigs of the future. Well, then the problem though is that the cat trade brought in Julius Randle, who plays his same position, is more senior in the league, has been in on an all NBA team before, and is a difficult personality. I'll put it that way. And
Yeah.
uh I think Chris Finch connected with him, for better or for worse, but I think there was no world in which Naz Reid was going to start over Julius Randle, because if you did that, then Julius Randle was going to pout and you weren't going
Yeah.
to get good Julius Randle. And when Julius Randle was playing well, um he brought like that bully ball toughness, and he brought it, there were fun moments, but the problem was when he was not playing well or not giving effort or in one of his funks, in a sour mood, it was absolutely awful. And had the double effect then of, well, Nas isn't going to start. So when you finally get rid of him, and I think it is like you said, that I think it was the plan, but obviously they were still fishing around for another move to make. It's interesting to think about, like, the Brown trade and what Philly was able to get him for, and wonder, did the Wolves poker? I had heard rumors like Boston was interested in Rudy perhaps, but then you think about, uh, we still wouldn't have a point guard. What's the Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards fit? And so I it's they're they're having to do the best they can with the limited resources they have. Some of those resources are limited because of their own prior poor moves, as you alluded to before. But uh, I have to look at it like they're not sitting complacent. They're taking a big swing. They might strike out, but they're trying to stay relevant here, and they're trying to keep Ant happy. And unfortunately, Naz Reid had to be a casualty in that.
Sure. And I think you would agree, you love both players. It's like choosing between your two children, or in your case, three children. Who's your favorite? But in terms of getting rid of Jaden McDaniels or Naz Reid, I think I'm siding with keeping Jaden.
100% for a lot of reasons. Jaden is not the uh, folk hero type of person that Nas is, but Jaden in some ways is the heart and soul and the dog in
Mm-hmm.
in this team. And I look at him like, I think we might see Jaden unlocked more offensively. We saw some of that in the playoffs. We need his defense, and he's a special player. Like, he needs to be the Pippen to Ants Jordan, and um, he's got a lot of work to do. But when you just look at, I mean, the going back to Ant saying they got KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels, um, to, they're all bad defenders, and then backing that up, and then staring down Jokic. I mean, if we had traded him, like, there, I was deathly afraid that we were going to trade Jaden McDaniels and whatever else to get Giannis, and everybody would have been so excited to get Giannis. We would have had Giannis and Ant and a very thin roster, and no more Jaden McDaniels, and that would have made me angry. I think,
Yeah.
like, so yes, as much as I love Nas, I just Jaden. I mean, I'll be frank. I love Nas. I like this jersey. The reason I have this jersey is because the number 3 ones were sold out when I bought this before last season. So this was supposed to be a Jade McDaniels jersey.
Sure. Well, Alex, to kind of wrap up here.
Hold on. I got something Chase was going to pull up. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into.
All right.
Thank you, Chase. So Calci currently has the odds around 4 or 5% for the Timberwolves to acquire LeBron James. We're in the conversation. So I just wanted to kind of run something past you. So if LeBron said he'd come here, but we got to work out a trade, it involves Dante DiVincenzo, and we got to go get Bronny. And we got to guarantee Bronny some minutes, whatever that is, 10 minutes a game or so. Are you interested?
It's hard to say no to LeBron James. But I would be more comfortable with like Giannis's brother situation where
he knows his place.
He's on the end of the bench. I mean, if Bronny earned the minutes, I would play Bronny. If it took acquiring Bronny for LeBron to come here, I would say do it. But I would be uncomfortable with guaranteeing him minutes. And you know, people have brought up though, coincidentally, Bronny's salary and former Timberwolf Jared Vanderbilt's salary are very close to Josh Green's $14.7 million. So you never know. But this whiteboard that Chase brought up, this is from an episode of Max Kellerman and Rich Paul's podcast. For those who don't know, Rich Paul is LeBron's agent and business partner and longtime lifelong friend. And they were sort of going through the options, listing, who are the players on the team. You look at, we're right in the middle there.
Yeah.
Rich Paul referenced he said, he misquoted it slightly, but he said, it's okay. We got Jade McDaniels. Max Kellerman was really pumping up Minnesota. I've seen the crazy thing about all this is the fact that we're even in the mix, even if it's relatively low odds, but we're one of the 5, 6 teams that people are legitimately talking about is crazy when you think about the history of this franchise. But there are people, almost everyone agrees that from a basketball fit standpoint, this is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, correct.
And he's stated like he doesn't care about the money. He would sign for the minimum. Now we'll see if that ends up being true. And lots of people have brought this up. This isn't an original thought, but from a narrative and story standpoint, if you end your career by bringing a championship to a franchise like the Minnesota Timberwolves, is that one more thing to add to the GOAT conversation? I don't know. I still think it's unlikely, but the fact that in the last 5 days or so, it went from, hey, we're in the mix, we're one of the teams that they're talking about, to like John Krasinski is continually saying, hey, like the Wolves are pitching this, and I don't think he would be bringing it up as much as he is if there was no smoke at all there. And so I think it's probably going to come, people think it's going to come down to Cleveland, Miami, or, people keep bringing up Philly or Golden State, but I think we're in that kind of final 3 mix. I still think it's ultimately not likely, but the fact that, it's July 7th and we're talking about LeBron James potentially come to the Timberwolves still with legitimate, there's legitimate chatter there. It's exciting. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no doubt.
What do you think? So, would you be excited to get LeBron?
I think so. I think he would kind of unlock a whole different dimension of this offense in terms of having two distributors, like having Melo and him to be able to facilitate the offense, I think would just be a huge advantage. And obviously, there's just a big gaping hole in power forward position. And obviously, it helps kind of bring back some of that physicality, size advantage that we had previously. So I think it would be awesome for a basketball fit. But of course, the other side of it is if it actually did work out and you won a championship, does it kind of devalue Anthony Edwards' first championship? And then he wins a championship, LeBron retires, he moves on.
Does he have the same hunger anymore? Does Ant
Correct.
after
Does
that?
Ant
Like,
go play football like he said he's wanted to?
yeah,
Like it's just I don't know. It wouldn't feel the same as like
yeah,
Ant winning his own title without like somebody like LeBron coming in
yeah.
to
I
carry
agree
him there.
completely, and I mean
Not
that's
that
gonna
not that
sound
we're talking about LeBron James from 6 years ago or whatever.
no, but
Obviously
I
he's
mean
not the same player, but
he's still playing at a really high level, and here we are, Minnesota fans, like being cute, precious about a championship and how it comes. I felt the same way a couple years ago when we were really going hard after KD. It's like that'd be super exciting and maybe you win, but it feels like that level of player, even compared to like the Rudy trade, is short circuiting the team building you're trying to do. It's almost like a cheat code, and it would
yeah.
feel different than these guys that we saw come up, and then you're adding these pieces in to to put it over the top. If especially KD, and if it was like a little bit younger LeBron, I mean he's 40. What is he? 42 years old or will be. Um, but obviously we would take a championship. I mean that's not what we're it's not what we're trying to say. We wouldn't take a championship. It's just it would feel different than if we had won the championship in 24-25, for instance. Uh,
Yeah.
that would have
Correct.
felt like it was our guys, even though Conley and and Rudy were not guys we drafted. That just those were supplementary pieces compared to what bringing in like a KD would have been. And to be honest, that was always in the back of my mind in Giannis discussions too.
Yeah.
And I realize it sounds crazy to say like I'm going to be mad if we trade Jaden McDaniels for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but it's that like I imagine even to a further level, that's how Boston fans are feeling. Like we just traded Jaylen Brown, who won a title with us, who's been our guy, who we watched grow up from a kid with Tatum, and now he's gone. And uh, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. They were talking about that on the Bill Simmons podcast today. Um, the downside of uh, these types of trades. It's Naz Reid for us. It's Jaylen Brown. I mean, kids are sad, adults are sad, and you lose some of that connection that teams build with fans in the community, and it becomes more of like, well, it's going to be Ant and our who's our rotating cast of hired guns coming in this year to try to win it, and it cheapens it a little bit in the process. Um,
Boy, you talk about that. That's a good point. I mean, us as Minnesota fans growing up through the 90s and the 2000s, we went through some brutal trades. I mean, you talk about Randy Moss,
oh god,
you talk Kevin Garnett, of course. They
Big
traded
Al
Johan
Jefferson,
Santana, right? Yeah.
David
I
Ortiz.
mean,
Well, we
well,
didn't. We let him go. But
we just let him go. That wasn't the same, but like you think about like we've been blessed. Obviously, we don't have the championships, we don't have the banners as to show that like a lot of other cities, but we, our connection to our team is really through our superstars,
mhm.
and we are blessed to have these like superstar players that you're proud to wear their jersey as a kid. Kevin Garnett, Torrey Hunter, Randy Moss, Dante Culpepper, and we've kind of all seen them go,
Mhm.
and in these big
And we've
trades.
had
And
more. We had Adrian Peterson. We had Kevin Love. We had Cat. We have Justin
yeah,
Jefferson now. We have Ant.
yeah,
We have, and I mean, now more than ever, I think we need to
it,
appreciate these guys while we have them. and not be so locked in on like, well, what if we don't win? Kind of like I was saying earlier, like let's watch Ant as long as we can and have fun with it because he may not be here forever and we're going to look back and go, did I spend enough time living in the moment and enjoying that or was I too worried about what's going to happen 4 years from now?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to end the episode. We appreciate you guys tuning in to the Due North Sports Podcast. We look forward to getting on more of a regular schedule, coming back on in a couple weeks, talk some more Timberwolves, get into some Vikings training camp updates, and we will see you guys then.
Peace out.